On behalf of House Democrats, let me just begin by communicating our sincere thoughts and prayers to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles as it relates to her diagnosis, and of course, we'll support her in any way possible back to work in full and complete health. This is a very challenging moment for the United States of America as we deal with a president, Donald Trump, and Republicans whose policies have done nothing but damage the quality of life of the American people. It was Republicans who, in their one big ugly bill, enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing throughout America because of Republican policies, and at the same period of time, these extremists refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, causing health insurance premiums to skyrocket for more than 20 million working-class Americans. Republicans have done great damage to the American people, made life more expensive for everyday Americans, on health care, on gas prices, on housing costs, on child care, on groceries. They've made life more expensive for the American people, and it's affirmatively being done by toxic and extreme Republican policies. And to make matters worse, at the same period of time, they've now gotten us into a reckless war of choice against Iran and are spending billions of dollars to drop bombs in the Middle East, but can't find a dime to make life more affordable for the American people. There's a better way, and Democrats are committed to fighting hard to relentlessly focus on driving down the high cost of living, fixing our broken health care system, making sure that immigration enforcement in this country is fair, just, and humane, and at the same time, ensuring that our taxpayer dollars aren't spent on another endless war in the Middle East, but are spent to lower the high cost of living, to make sure that every single American in this country can live an affordable life, a comfortable life, and live the good life. Questions?
Good afternoon. Republicans ran on border security in 2024. They largely attribute some of their victories to that. Do you think that with the SAVE Act in front of the Senate that there is a risk for Democrats? Because we see all this polling that it favors their side, that people want this in spite of the problems you have with this. Is there a risk for Democrats to have that backfire on them considering their opposition?
No, we've repeatedly made clear that the administration of elections are to be done as per the United States Constitution. This was an intentional choice that the framers of this country made, that the administration of elections are to be done at the state and local level. And states are free to make the determination as to what type of requirement there should be to ensure that elections are free and fair. Now, the United States Constitution also makes clear that only citizens can vote. That's a constitutional requirement. And states are free to implement that requirement as best they see fit. In New York State, for instance, there are strong voter identification requirements that have been embraced by both Democrats and Republicans. This is a phony issue that Donald Trump is creating. What's amazing to me is that Donald Trump had the nerve to say to the Speaker of the House, who apparently didn't object, that the most important thing that Republicans should focus on is voter suppression legislation. And that housing doesn't matter, health care doesn't matter, grocery bills doesn't matter, the fact that Republicans are jacking up gas prices doesn't matter, electricity bills through the roof because of Republican policies in the one big ugly bill doesn't matter. This is extraordinary stuff, and it's the reason why Donald Trump Republican policies and their candidates are so deeply unpopular all across the country and are losing elections, as has been the case for 15 consecutive months.
Two questions. Do you see any progress on DHS negotiations? And number two, on a defense supplemental, I mean, I know you're probably against it, but how do you think through all that stuff?
Well, first, as it relates to the Department of Homeland Security, we've repeatedly made clear, Democrats in both the House and the Senate that we should fund the TSA, fund Coast Guard, fund CISA, fund FEMA, fund every other aspect of the Department of Homeland Security that doesn't have to do with ICE or Donald Trump and Republicans' toxic deportation machine that the American people are rejecting. And for whatever the reason, Republicans have decided that they would rather shut down the whole thing than actually deal with a situation where we get ICE under control. And the American people know that ICE is totally out of control. And the only thing that will change it are things that can be built into the law that are bold, meaningful, and that Democrats have proposed, including, but not limited to, judicial warrant requirements before ICE agents can go breaking into the homes of American people and then ripping them out of their homes in the middle of the night. Unacceptable. An explicit prohibition is necessary on sensitive locations. ICE agents en masse who are poorly trained should not be able to target houses of worship, hospitals, schools, and polling locations. We need to make sure that state and local officials can actually criminally investigate ICE agents who violate state and local laws. There's no such thing as people having a free pass in the United States of America. We just want ICE to conduct itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country.
So you don't see any progress in the time?
Well, you know, we continue to have dialogue, House and Senate Democrats with the White House, in exchanging offers and counteroffers. And we're ready, willing, and able to find a bipartisan path forward. But the changes made have to be bold, they have to be meaningful, they have to be transformational. We can no longer allow the situation as it exists with ICE agents unleashing brutality on the American people, killing in cold blood American citizens, and violently targeting law-abiding immigrant families. And all of this is being done with a $75 billion slush fund that Republicans built into their one big ugly bill, while ripping Medicaid and health care away from everyday Americans, and at the same time snatching food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. Make it make sense for the American people, because it does not. Now, on the supplemental issue, listen, the administration has not even made the case to the American people as to why we are spending billions of dollars and dropping bombs every day in Iran, while at the same period of time doing nothing about the affordability crisis, which Donald Trump continues to insist is a hoax. It's not a hoax. I travel the country. People are struggling throughout America to achieve the American dream. Many people have understandably concluded it is out of reach, and we have to restore it. And instead, you've got the administration, without any plan, any objective, any exit strategy, has gotten us into this reckless war of choice in the Middle East. So the notion that they would come up here and ask for additional money is beyond the pale at this moment. Start by explaining why we're in this to begin with, because they failed in that regard.
Well, thank you, Mr. Leader. Airlines for America and a group of the major U.S. airline CEOs sent an open letter to Congress yesterday asking Congress to reach a deal to end the shutdown. They also demanded legislation to, pay for aviation officials, TSA workers, all the folks who aren't getting paid right now within the aviation space. Is that something that you will support going forward once we're past this shutdown? Do you think that, in the midst of shutdown, TSA workers, all the folks who are being affected right now should be exempt from not getting paid as they're going with their paychecks?
We think that TSA agents should absolutely be paid, and it's a shame that Republicans have decided to use TSA agents and other DHS employees outside of their toxic immigration agenda space as political pawns. Like House and Senate Democrats have repeatedly made clear, we should fund TSA, fund FEMA, fund the Coast Guard, fund cybersecurity operations within the Department of Homeland Security. Republicans in the House and the Senate have rejected it. They're playing games as they always do. So that's why on Wednesday we're going to launch this discharge petition. It's the first day that it becomes ripe to advance Congresswoman Rosa DeLaura's bill. And we'll just need a handful of Republicans to join us. And guess what? Despite all the cynicism, all the skepticism that has existed throughout this Congress, as if Democrats were knocked on our back heels, we've repeatedly won discharge petitions. And if it comes to it, we're going to win this one as well. And so, to me, we can do this the easy way. Why doesn't Mike Johnson and Republicans just agree to put the bill on the floor? It will pass overwhelmingly. Or we can go down the discharge petition route again, and Republicans can once again demonstrate that they've lost control of the House floor and that Democrats are governing in the minority on behalf of the American people as if we're in the majority.
So Illinois primary tomorrow, as we saw in New Jersey 11, North Carolina.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ask me? Did you have a question about New Jersey 4?
I'm asking.
What was your question? What was your question about New Jersey 4?
New Jersey 4.
North Carolina 4.
If you would endorse Nida Alam if she won the primary.
And what happened in that primary?
She lost. Okay. But I'm asking about outside groups.
Okay.
As we saw in New Jersey 11, as we saw in North Carolina 4, the largest spender in all 4 of these House primaries and the Senate primary, outside groups, APAC and their affiliated PACs, crypto companies, AI companies. Do you have an issue with how much these outside groups are spending compared to the candidates?
I think what we need to do is to end Citizens United. And Democrats are prepared to do everything we can when we're in the majority, connected to H.R. 1, which we've done twice now, when we've previously been in the majority, to change the dynamics. There's far too much money, outside money across the board, being spent in elections that should be determined by the candidates and the case that they can individually make to the American people. And this was all unleashed by Citizens United, which we will continue to strongly oppose.
Mr. Leader.
When it comes to the Iran conflict, obviously, I mean, you all have been advocating for the war powers resolution and so forth and the hostilities. But even if you withdraw at this point, it's very clear that Iran is going to continue to deal with the Strait of Hormuz. So what, if anything, do you see as the off-ramp here, and what are Democrats willing to engage with if Iran comes back later and starts re-engaging in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, part of the problem is that, the administration failed to prepare for this reckless war of choice. They failed to prepare for Iran's actions in the Strait of Hormuz. They failed to prepare as it relates to the fact that thousands of Americans were stranded for days, if not weeks, in the Middle East with no plan by the State Department to evacuate American citizens in a very challenging region where there are now more than 12 countries that have been plunged into this conflict as a result of what began with Donald Trump's reckless decision to spend billions of dollars to drop bombs in the Middle East. There's no plan of action as it relates to the fact that all of these countries are now involved in terms of what could have been predicted as it relates to Iran's response, particularly connected to the Gulf states. And now it's a challenging environment in terms of this not devolving into a conflict that doesn't simply go on for weeks, but months or years. This was a clear failure, and rather than the so-called Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history, rather than him complaining about news media coverage and actually suggesting, weighing in favor of a merger so he can create some kind of state television situation, which, by the way, all Pete Hegseth and the FCC commissioner and others chair are doing is putting a target on the backs of these mergers. It's an irresponsible thing for them to do, even if they're trying to bring these things about. Because now the scrutiny level is just going to increase exponentially. That's what Pete Hegseth has accomplished. That's what the chair of the FCC has accomplished. As opposed to complaining about media coverage for their deeply unpopular war of choice in the Middle East, perhaps they should actually plan to keep American troops, men and women, safe. Because clearly that has not happened to the degree that it needs to.
Regarding Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, he has confirmation hearings coming up on Wednesday. based on what you know of him, if you've had, I guess, have you had conversations with him, and if so or if not, what do you expect from a Secretary Mullen, and do you think that will cause a breakthrough in negotiations?
Yeah, I have not had any conversations with him relative to this nomination. I'm certainly interested in hearing what he has to say when he testifies publicly before the Senate. But our position has also been clear, and I articulated this in a letter to the caucus earlier today. A change in personnel, as disgraceful as Kristi Noem was, and it's not over in terms of our scrutiny of Kristi Noem, because she's super corrupt, wasting hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. And so accountability is further coming her way. It's a long list of them, but it's further coming her way. That a change in personnel is not sufficient. We need a change in policy. We need dramatic, bold, meaningful, and transformational changes so that ICE conducts itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country, that they behave like local police officers, state troopers, or county sheriffs, as opposed to running around using taxpayer dollars to brutalize and kill American citizens or violently target law-abiding immigrant families. The American people have had enough, and Democrats are going to continue to stand up for that principle.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You said that as of right now it's beyond the pale that the administration would come and request more supplemental funding. But if you were to have a briefing where you received an explanation you felt adequate, that they need more money to support the troops, what would you consider about that funding be put in that reconciliation?
It's beyond the pale right now that the administration is even floating the notion that they want to come to Congress, who they've chosen to ignore, meaning they've chosen to ignore the American people, didn't want to make their case to the American people. It's one of the reasons why the war is so deeply unpopular right now, out of the gate. By the way, this has never happened before. But the American people see so clearly through the consequences of this failed effort to plunge America into a war with no strategy, no objective, and no end game, that it is beyond the pale that the administration is now floating the possibility of coming to Congress and asking for tens of billions of dollars more in taxpayer dollars. How about spending some money to restore the Medicaid cuts that have ripped health care away from more than 14 million Americans? How about finding a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits? Let's start there so we can restore health care insurance affordability for more than 20 million Americans. How about doing something about the skyrocketing costs of gasoline prices because of what Donald Trump has done in the Middle East? How about actually walking away from the reckless Trump tariffs that have imposed thousands of dollars in additional costs on everyday Americans? This administration has been a complete and total disaster, a man-made disaster, inflicting pain and suffering on the American people. And so there are a whole lot of things that need to be dealt with before we can, in good conscience, evaluate any hypothetical supplemental funding request that is presented to the Congress. Thank you, everyone.
How far can Rod Strickland take LIU?
First of all, let me just say,
Don't talk about St. John's.
let me just say, listen, well, I root for the Big East in the NCAA, so I am rooting for UConn, I'm rooting for Villanova, but St. John's was robbed with a number 5 seeding. There's no justification for that, but we're very excited about St. John's. We're very excited about LIU, which is in my district, and very excited about Hofstra, which is just outside of the city.
And UConn.
You didn't mention Miami of Ohio.
And UConn.
Well, it's a great story.
What's up, brother? Yeah, dude. What's up with you? How you been?